Welcome to the second workout in the first week for the FORCE program. Before we get started, make sure you hang up the TRX suspension trainer the right way and make sure you will have done your mobility workout. In this workout, you're going to notice a higher emphasis on lower body. And we're really going to be focusing on maintaining that good core strength and stability and working through breaking at the hips or hip hinging as well as single leg work. So before we get started, remember we're going to be bringing you 3 athletes at 3 different levels of intensity. Make sure you know what level you should be working at. Focus on the movement first, learn your appropriate level of progression, earn your right to move forward, and focus on what you're doing. All right, let's get after it. The first exercise is going to be the TRX hip press. So you want to adjust the straps so the bottom of those foot cradles are hitting you about mid-calf. And another way to double check it is as you sit down on the ground, you want to make sure the bottom of those foot cradles are just above your toes when it's all the way down. So now go ahead and let yourself lay back, drop your heels in. Make sure you got the straps up good on your heels. And now for level 1, you're going to start with straight legs. Level 2 and 3, you're going to bend your knees so they're right on top of your hips. And 45 seconds begins now. You'll notice level 1 is now engaging that core, and so that plank is moving up and down, but extending from the hips and hamstrings and getting that posterior chain turned on. Level 2, her hips are not resting on the floor each time, and she's coming up a nice good hip extension. You want to feel almost like you got a stretch in the front of those hips and driving from those glutes. Core stays engaged. Level 3, the hands are up for a little bit less stability. We're about halfway there. One of the common mistakes they'll make is as they come back down, those knees will wander away from the hips. So I'm going to stand right in front of David's feet right here, and now his feet have to stay in the same place as he comes up into hip flexion and hip extension, up and down. And now we make sure that core stays engaged and he's driving it from the glutes. You just got 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1, and down and relax. Now, next move is going to be our TRX overhead back extension. So now you're going to adjust the TRX so it's at mid-length. You're going to stand facing the anchor point. So we just start to warm up this hip flexion and extension, driving from the glutes with a strong core. We're going to take that same movement pattern and we're going to have it from a standing position. You're going to start in that end range. So you want to stand up so you're feeling nice and tight. That posterior chain is turned on. You want to feel biceps by the ears. You don't want to have your arms in front of your head. Nice and strong here. 45 seconds begins now. You'll notice our level 1 athlete, his hands are staying in the same place in 3-dimensional space, and he's just working on that hip hinge, going back into flexion and coming up into extension, really feeling that stress come from his hamstrings and his glutes. His back is staying flat because that core stays turned on the whole time. Level 2, she's getting those arms to drive up overhead, holding that top position. You see those scapular pulled down and back, breaking at the hips. So now she's going into shoulder flexion and hip extension at the same time. Level 3, we're getting a nice iso hold here at the top. At the top of this position, he's feeling like he's trying to rip the TRX out of the anchor point. Turn on that posterior chain here, breaking at the hips, a little pause at the bottom here, re-engaging that core, coming up the top nice and strong. You always want to feel like you're getting good posterior chain, and 45 seconds is done. Next exercise is going to be our TRX lunge. You're going to go ahead and put it in single handle mode. Adjust the length so the bottom of the foot cradle's hitting you about mid-calf. We're going to start by loading our right foot in. So we're going to do 10 reps on our left side. Then we're going to switch and do 10 reps on our right side. Make sure you know what it feels like before we get started. So even before we drop down into the bottom position here, everyone's going to check their posture at the top. You're going to stand nice and tall, nice line going ears, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. Find that plank right from here. Once again, we're looking for that proximal stability leading to distal mobility. Now you're going to take yourself to the ground. Let that back knee bend and touch the ground. You have both hands on the ground because we're going to start having you know where that bottom position is. We're going to go 10 reps each side beginning now. That level 1 movement is going to keep both hands on the ground each time. He's going to be able to load a little bit of weight into his hands and then treat it like a deadlift as he comes up. Shoulders and hips moving at the same time. Level 2, we're adding a little twist to this literally. Now, because her left leg is forward, her right hand goes down to the ground. That left elbow is going to push that left knee out just a little bit. So now she has to worry about a little rotation or transverse plane movement into that hip. And our level 3 has no hands down. That core stays engaged the entire time with that nice stiff spine, working around a nice mobile triple flexion, triple extension coming up and down. You'll notice he has one hand stacked on top of the other, and he's driving those hands together to keep that core turned on. After 10 reps, you're going to switch it around. Remember, this is not a conditioning drill, this is a strength drill. Make your movement slow and controlled. Make sure that core is turned on before you start the movement. Make sure you're driving this from the posterior chain. You're looking for hamstring and glute to drive you through this. So as you lower down, come down under control. So we're going to even slow down level one a little bit more. Slow down under control, re-engage, and come up nice and strong. You want to feel like you have about 200 pounds on your shoulders the entire time. So you're never just swinging in and out of this movement. If I said stop at any point, you should be able to stop with perfect form no matter what range of motion you are into the rep. You might notice that one side feels a little bit stronger than the other, especially in this level two. Make sure you get that elbow right on top of the knee. Elbow right there next to the knee, pushing you out into a little bit of external rotation. And now drive up. You're going to feel that hip turn on completely differently. You could do this movement fast, and in later workouts will turn into more of a conditioning workout, but right now it's about strength and control. Once you get your 10 reps each side, you are done with that, and we're moving on to our next exercise, which is our TRX pike. So we're going to take it out of single handle mode, put it back into double handle mode. It should be adjusted to the right height. Have a seat on the ground. You're going to go toes in, and once again, the pike is all about this hip hinge. So if you think about what we've done so far, we've done a hip press, we've done an overhead back extension, we've done a lunge. We've really focused on breaking at the hips. Now we're going to incorporate some upper body strength into this same hip hinge movement. So the first thing to focus on here is hitting your plank solid first. So everybody up into your plank position, hips down a little bit more, hips down, shoulders pulled down and back, hit that plank nice and strong. We're going to go 45 seconds of that pike beginning now. Level one, he's going to take a little rest after every rep. We want to make sure that plank is solid. He's going to come up, hit that pike position, breaking at the hips, coming back down, taking a quick rest. Level two is going to go continuous as long as she can. If she needs to take a break during the 45 seconds to reset and make sure that form is solid, that's perfectly acceptable as well. We're halfway through, and what you'll see level three doing is he's getting a nice iso hold at the top and down under control and re-engaging that plank. Think about you trying to push your hands towards your feet, bring your feet towards your hands, that spine stays nice and straight, and you're looking for all the movement taking place into those hips. At the top, it feels like you're into an overhead press position here, like you're holding the planet over your head. You got time for about one more good, strong rep. 45 seconds is up. Now, down and relax, drop those knees. That's the end of round one. We've done 4 exercises here. We're now moving on to round 2, which is our TRX sprinter start. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to adjust that TRX so it's fully lengthened. Push down on those D-rings, lengthen it all the way out. You're going to stand facing away from the anchor point, and you're going to bring the straps underneath your arms. You want to make sure those straps are underneath your arms and those handles are all the way up by the sides of your chest. You don't want to feel like you're holding yourself up into a push-up. You want to make sure that you're locked down in there, and you want to find your plank first. Ears, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles on the balls of your feet, and walk back so you're about a 45-degree angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to go 10 reps each leg. So find that plank first, get that core turned on, and work from the hips. 10 reps each side. We're going to keep the right leg still first and move the left leg. Ready, begin. Level 1 is going to reach back into that stepping pattern, and he's going to touch that toe up to the ground each time. So he's going to reset the plank back, reset it up top. Level 2 is going to find a nice, easy cadence where that toe's coming up and down. That back leg stays nice and strong. You want to extend through the hip. Level 3, you see, gives himself a nice iso hold at the top. So he's going to, at the top, make sure that he's engaged in that glute, in that core, so he can control that movement all the way through. Look at this movement. It turns into a stepping pattern or almost another version of that lunging pattern that you did earlier. Once you get 10 reps on one leg, you're going to perform 10 reps on the other side. This is another one of those movements that you could do fast, but this week we're working on it slow and controlled. You're looking for that plank at the top, a nice long line as that leg goes back, and then you're driving through that front hip and knee to bring yourself up. That core stays engaged the entire time. Proximal stability leading to power in that hip for that distal mobility. You can take the same movement, slow it down, and turn it into a good, strong exercise as you see level 3 doing. A little more tempo because you might not have the stability at the top for level 2, and now making sure you're resetting that plank every time for level 1. Great. Once you get 10 each side, we're going to go to the TRX lateral lunge. You'll notice on level 1, feet stay wide, and you're unloading as much of your body weight into the TRX as you need to create that mobility. Level 2, we turn into more of a dynamic movement where you're going to alternate sides, stepping out into that lateral lunge and driving yourself back up. Level 3, we're going to work one side at a time. you'll notice David is stepping out to the right, bringing himself back in, and doing that single leg squat. We're halfway through, so now he's going to switch it up. Step out to the left, bring it back in, single leg squat here. The focus here is still make sure that core stays nice and tight, getting as much mobility as you can into those hips. You'll see that level 2 has great hip mobility, so she can turn it into a nice strength move by keeping that core nice and tight and driving up through that hip. If you're a little bit more restricted in that mobility area, you try and get as much range of motion as you can and relax. Shake it out for a second. Next exercise is going to be our TRX hamstring runner. So the first thing you're going to do is adjust the TRX so the bottom of those foot cradles are about mid-calf height. You're going to have a seat on the floor. You're going to drop both heels in. For level 1, you're going to want to make sure that your feet are on the far side of the anchor point from your head. You're going to take advantage of the pendulum principle. Level 2, feet are going to be right underneath the anchor point. Go ahead and extend the legs out. Level 3, we're going to have you scoot out just a little bit more. Great, right there. So now you have easy resistance, medium resistance, harder resistance. 45 seconds begins now. The whole idea is to always keep one leg straight. This is going to be a very similar movement pattern to what you did for the sprinter start. We want to make sure that core is turned on, working into hip extension of the straight leg and triple flexion of the leg that's moving in. One thing to keep in mind here is once you feel that that foot's as far back as you can get it, try and squeeze out another inch or two and you're going to feel that core and that glute turn on a little bit more. Remember, one leg is always straight. It's not a mountain climber move, it's not a bicycle move, it's a strength move to keep that core turned on and make sure the legs can work independently. We're more than halfway there. Level 1, easy side of the anchor point. Level 2, right in the middle. Level 3 is on the far side of the close side of the anchor point, to make a little bit more resistance, and down and relax. While we got you on the ground, go ahead, take heels out, drop toes in. The next exercise is going to be the TRX body saw. Another great way to challenge the plank and the core stability that you started working on in workout 1 of this week. Once again, level 1 is going to take advantage of the pendulum principle, be on this side of the anchor point, feet opposite from head. Level 2, feet right underneath the anchor point. Level 3, a little bit in front of the anchor point here. We're going to do 10 body saws at your own pace. Ready, begin. Once again, everything focuses on a nice strong core. So core is turned on, glutes are turned on, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Quads are turned on, and you're just pushing yourself back to give yourself a little bit of lever arm that has to challenge that core. Move as slow and controlled as you need to be. As you come forward, don't let the spine round. Stay tight, tight here. Bring it forward, tight, tight, try those hips. Don't let the back round as you come forward. Back stays nice and flat. Come forward with a nice flat back, that's better. Make sure you get 10 good reps. Level 1, level 2 are on their forearms. Level 3 gets a big challenge here, pulling those shoulder blades down and back and doing that body saw from the hands. Center of gravity is higher from his base of support. He's less stable, more controlled. Once again, to make this exercise harder, don't go faster. You got to move slower and with more control. Once you get that 10th rep, drop those knees down, relax for a second. That's the end of our second round. We're getting ready to start our third round. Now that we got that core turned on by moving from the upper body, we're now going to go to our half kneeling rollout, and we're going to work it from the lower body. So for this one, you're going to grab a towel. You can take a t-shirt and ball it up because we want to put it underneath that knee so you have a little bit more control in that grounded leg. So this movement is going to map to any time you would have to shovel or put something up on a shelf or even climbing in or a low crawl. Once again, we're going to take advantage of our pendulum principle here. Our level 1 is going to start with his head right underneath the anchor point or maybe even a little bit in front. This way, as he starts to roll out, he's going to have a little bit of downhill action to bring him home. You want to adjust from this half kneeling stance the handles so they're at knee height. So all our athletes are going to start with their right knee down. We're going to have that right toe tucked underneath and back so we get a little bit of mobility work into that ankle. You're going to have a nice straight line going ear, shoulder, hip, knee to that grounded side, and both hands are inside of that left leg. You're going to do 5 reps each side, and you want to make sure you're in control the whole time. So before we start, just like we did with the lunge, make sure core's turned on, glutes are turned on, hips are square, and you're going to try and keep those hips and that knee facing forward as we go into it, 5 reps each side. Go ahead and start. That rollout takes place at a 45-degree angle. Level 1, because he's on this side of the anchor point, has some assistance coming back. As you roll out here, core stays turned on. Notice those hips are staying square and the knees are fine there. And level 3, as he walks out, he's actually going to drop down into a little bit of a tricep press and bring himself back up. Now we're going to combine core stability with hip mobility. As you roll out, you're going to feel a nice stretch into that front inner thigh and stretch into that hip flexor. This is one of our mobility exercises, and now what we've done is we've layered it into the sequence to make sure it sets us up for the next move. Now, transitioning from having your left leg up to your right leg up is actually part of the exercise. So reset that shoulder girdle, reset that core, put some pressure down into the handles, and as you switch legs, you want to feel like your body, your torso, your head doesn't move in three-dimensional space. So that core has to stay turned on, and then go right back into 5 on the other side. Same levels here, taking advantage of that pendulum principle in and out. A little bit more challenging here because you're starting with the head right underneath the anchor point. And this little addition of dropping into a tricep press here at the bottom gives them a little bit more mobility into that hip, has to fire that core even that much more, and now we're adding a pushing program in here as well. This exercise is a great mobility exercise. We're showing it as a strength exercise, and we're leading it into our next exercise where we're really going to be looking for good strength and power, which is going to be our TRX burpee. So from this position here, you're going to go ahead and put it in single handle mode. You can move your towels or your t-shirts off to the side. And now we're going to start by loading up our right foot in the suspension trainer, left leg down. We're going to take advantage of that core stability we just fired up with the half kneeling rollout, that hip mobility we fired up in that same exercise, and we're going to perform 8 burpees on each side. Starting left leg down first, and ready at your own pace, begin. You'll see level 1 just kicks back to a plank on his hands and then stands up. So it's really a lunge pattern with a little bit of a plank in there. Level 2 is going to add that push-up, coming up nice and strong into that plank, driving that leg through, and then treating it as a lunge as she comes up. Level 3 is putting it all together as a nice, powerful move. He drops down under control, kicks it back, strong push-up, and that lunge now turns into a hopping lunge. So that core has to make sure it stays turned on to stabilize those hips. They're resisting those rotational forces, and they're working at their own pace. The slower you go, the more strength you're going to get. The faster you go, the more power you're going to get out of this exercise. You're just going to do 8 reps on each side. The idea is to not feel like you're totally smoked, totally conditioned out of this, to make sure that your movement stays clean. Go ahead and switch it up to the other side. Start from the bottom, set your mind the right way, and begin 8 reps on that other side. If you're only going to think about 2 things during this exercise, think about that core being nice and braced in that plank position here. Because from that plank position, you can either do a strong push-up or you can bring that hip through nice and strong. As soon as that foot hits the ground, you're thinking lunge. You want to make sure that posterior chain turns on, and that's what's driving the movement. It doesn't matter how fast you come up out of it. When you're doing the level 2, you want to make sure that you're nice and controlled. So as Catherine goes down, we're making sure her hips stay low, come up, hit that plank at the top. Now don't let those hips come up too fast. Good. We're going to have you do one more time. Go down, hit that plank, hold that plank down, drive that leg up. Now don't let those hips and shoulders move at different speeds. Bring yourself up. We got to get you into a little bit stronger plank. Get yourself down, tighten up that plank. Bring that leg in here, hold that bottom position there. Now drive up from the hip and relax. The whole idea here is to get that core turned on and then drive from the hip. Last move we're going to do in this round is going to be our TRX Y fly to T fly. So you're going to start by lengthening the TRX out to mid-length. You're going to stand facing the anchor point, and you're going to find your end range of that Y fly first. You want to start with your hands up over your head. You want biceps to be about the level of your ears. And once again, we're going to work from that plank. We're going to put you into that offset foot position. So now you can use that back leg to spot yourself if you need to, and that's also going to help you keep tension on the straps the entire time, because as long as there's tension on the straps, there's tension in the back of your body. So bring those arms back even more. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to see your arms. 45 seconds begins now. You'll see level 1 is going to use that back leg as much as he needs to make sure he brings himself through for a good range of motion, opening up those chests, and he's just going to focus on getting a good Y fly pattern here. Level 2, going to cycle between the Y and the T, and as she comes down, we're not going to let those hips break, and we're going to treat that initial pull coming from the shoulders coming down and back. We're halfway through here, so we're making sure the core stays engaged and that shoulder girdle is working around a nice strong core. And once again, our level 3, same movement, nice strong iso hold at the top. Every time he gets to the top here, he's pulling so hard he thinks he can pull that TRX off the anchor point. That's going to keep that posterior chain lit up the entire time. You got time for half a rep, and relax and drop them. That's the end of round 3. Just like we did in the first workout, we gave you 3 rounds. We let you build up in the beginning to something that becomes really functional and really integrated towards the end. These last 2 exercises, the TRX burpee and the Y fly to T fly, is really going to get that posterior chain of the upper back following where you were pushing, and that burpee is really going to drive from that lower body from a nice strong core. Once again, we gave you rounds 1, 2, 3. Later on in the program, you'll repeat rounds 1, 2, 3 again, or you'll do 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So at the end of this workout, that burpee adds a conditioning component to the focus, strength, and mobility that you built up to that point.